I haven't. Because afterwards it's too hot. Green napkins now with the white.
I don't know, she must have.
I know I laid it down just to put my...
Walton up yet, Jim?
We've been on 40 I called you one time too. Left a message with your wife. No. That's great. My wife shot around. So we went with that. One grand deal. Yeah, give up that.
I gotta say hi to Belinda.
Okay. Yeah.
I got it. But no, I heard that you were the one that was trying to find everybody.
Well, so.
We needed help.
She needed a lot. We were at the bar in 7th grade.
My idol. I never want to stop him from making back and throw some stuff out on the internet, so that's all good. That's
And they all call me
I know you're glad it's always here. I know you're good now.
That 86 was very good. I was in Missouri. Yeah, I remember the game. Well, all right. Close enough. Within 20.
had a cookout with steak.
Do this every year, Joe?
Good money, but that was cooked on Raymond and Baker Street, right across from me.
One guy raved it, I come directly back
Hello, Eddie Burton. How you doing? Nice to see you here. How are you?
Sorry.
Well, yeah, I can make a little correction.
Well, just put D sample, right? D sample would be great.
Then I told him
I didn't know. I was trying to remember if it was him or Jelly Bean Reynolds. You remember Jelly Bean Reynolds? Played center hook shot. He ended up in Canada playing football, I think.
Please, can I have your attention? Very important.
And up there, and Ed sees a couple of his teammates fall down, and maybe he'll shorten his speed. But hey, just enjoy yourself. It's going to be, if you've never been here before, and Ed has been here, and I'm sure a couple of the other people, Pete Pelotas has been here, but you're really in for some kind of a treat here tonight. This is really something special. It's a classy affair, and we're quite confident you're really going to have a good time. And it's unbelievable how many people from that 56-57 team that are here today. I mean, everybody who's alive is here with a couple of exceptions, and I'm sure they have good reasons why they couldn't be here tonight, health reasons or whatever. But what a magnificent turnout. And I know that we don't have the other regular inductees here at the present time, but you're going to be really surprised at the community support and the love affair that they've had with you guys over the years. They certainly haven't forgotten you, and you're going to find that out tonight. Have a good time.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm going to have you get up there and give me a Banquet for the Muskegon Area Sports Hall of Fame. This year's most deserving class will surely become a part of something very special here in the Muskegon area, adding their name to a very elite group, the members of the Muskegon Area Sports Hall of Fame. I can't really tell you how honored I am to be your master of ceremonies this evening, but anybody who has ever been here to one of these banquets, and there's a ton of you out there, know that I have impossible shoes to fill. In replacing the incomparable Tom Fallon, I feel like the gentleman who had to replace Babe Ruth in right field, or Schimbeckler at Michigan, or Hayes at Ohio State. Or a little closer to home, I know how Harry Potter felt when they had to replace Leo Redmond at Muskegon High School. Or the many coaches that had to replace the legendary Okie Johnson at Muskegon Heights. Or even a more recent vintage, now I know how Denny Barnes felt when he had to replace Pete Kuchis and Reese Puffer. I certainly am not even going to pretend that I could ever do as good a job as Tom Fallon did as your MC for the past decade, and I hope you will bear with me one more time with the old announcer this evening. But the one thing I feel I can match Tom with, certainly not surpass, is that we both share a lifelong love affair with this community and an undying respect for the athletes that we've honored in the past and that we're honoring again this evening. I can remember how much I enjoyed sitting back and relaxing, maybe having a chilled beverage or two, as Tom Fallon so eloquently ran the show. Where is Tom, by the way? I know he's in here somewhere. Right here. Tom Fallon. And now you can sit back and relax, Tom, because I'm standing up here just scared to death. I, like most people, I'm sure that would gather here this evening, developed their interest in sports from their fathers. I was very lucky, as my father was a head football, basketball, and baseball coach over in North Muskegon. And my dad, as did most fathers from that magnificent era of the post-war 40s and 50s, would take me to a number of sporting events in the greater Muskegon area, where I first saw many of the athletes perform that were long ago enshrined in the Hall of Fame. One of my earliest recollections was back in 1950, and I was going to North Muskegon High School at the time, and I went over to Phillips Field to see a Muskegon Heights football game. Can you imagine a guy that just got through watching 500 people play the preceding night over at North Muskegon, and I looked up in the stands and there's 10,000 people in attendance? I can still vividly recall the daring running of a little speedster halfback by the name of Stonewall Jackson, as he led Muskegon Heights to an upset victory over the Muskegon Big Reds, quarterbacked by the legendary Earl Moore. Well, that was an upset, perhaps in the mind only of Hall of Fame sports writer and editor Jim Henderson of the Muskegon Chronicle, who believed any win over his beloved Big Reds by an opponent was an upset. I can remember Dad taking me down to Michigan State's Macklin Field, where I idolized a running back from Muskegon Heights named Sonny Grandelius, the first running back in Spartan history to rush for more than 1,000 yards in a season. A little later on, I can also remember back in the middle 50s how everybody jumped on the Heights Tiger basketball bandwagon as they journeyed down Old Highway 16 in a virtual caravan to the capital city. It was this team that brought together community spirit for Greater Muskegon that is carried over to this day. Wasn't it refreshing last fall to see fans and spectators representing many of our area schools follow the Ravenna Bulldogs to the state title in football? Well, this total community-wide spirit began with the Heights Tigers of the 1950s. Following dinner tonight, we meet a new group of heroes as this year's class of 1997 moves into the Muskegon Area Hall of Fame. Before we enjoy tonight's feast and begin the program, I would like to welcome to the speaker stand a former Heights Tiger great of the past who will give this evening's invocation. Ladies and gentlemen, Bishop John L. Sanders of the Zion Tabernacle Apostolic Faith Church. Bishop Sanders.
I'd like to say before we start, God is a good God. Just looking over all of you and just thinking of the goodness of the Lord, of this great moment that we all share. And when I was asked to do this, I had joy in my soul. I count it all worthy, only unto the Lord. Shall we believe God? Shall we bow our heads? Our Father, in the name of Jesus, we thank you, Lord, for this blessing that you have stored upon each of us. Before the foundation of the world, you have foreordained this day. Lord, we ask you to continue to bless them that travel dangerous highways, airways to this meeting on tonight. Blessing, Lord, that great athletes of the 11th, Lord, commemoration of that moment that you have given us here in Muskegon County. We thank you, Lord, for the coaches and the players and the families that have supported Lord, the teams over many years. Now we see unity amongst your people. And we thanking you for it right now. We give you the honor and the praise. Bless right now, continue to bless the athletes in the future, and as well as the present. Because we see the great number that have come out through history to bring this moment to a glorious, glorious day. And I thank you, Lord, and I give you the praise. I thank you for what you have done. I praise you for what you're going to do in Muskegon County. That the young peoples may see love and unity amongst athletes as they carry on all over the world, and lifting up your name that's above every name, the name of Jesus. Let all the believers say, amen.
Where Muskegon Brothers first Class A state 100-meter dash champion since the days of Joe Parham at Muskegon Heights in 1962. Lamar Courtney, Morris George, the fastest 100-yard dash guy in the state of Michigan this year. He won it all today. Ed Burke wasn't quite that fast. Here are these guys out there lollygagging out in the hallway. A year ago, my good friend Tom Fallon stood right here, reminisced with us some of the experiences that he shared with longtime sports editor Jim Henderson during Tom's most distinguished career with our local paper. Well, you know, I too worked at one time for our local publication as a stringer covering sports for North Muskegon High School. And I can vividly remember delivering my article in the wee hours of the morning. And I get over there and I walk into the Chronicle and walk up the stairs and I look over in that southeast corner and I would see the imposing figures of Jim Henderson, Joe Eiler, Gene's dad, Ed Young, and on occasion Charlie Woodruff would be in there. And Tom, I don't want to burst your bubble, but I don't think those guys could ever make it with our local paper today. Now, let me clarify this and tell you why. For those of you old timers that have gathered here this evening, can you imagine that group working in an environmentally correct, smoke-free Muskegon County? Tom Cannigan, he knows what I'm talking about. Even though it was about 5 o'clock in the morning, you walk upstairs, and you thought a smoke bomb went off in the Muskegon Chronicle. And it's no wonder that Chesterfield and Old Gold and some of our old cigarette makers a long time ago have since went out of business. This year's group of inductees excelled over a time frame that spanned nearly 80 years. Jake Outwood began his role as Muskegon's ambassador for baseball around about the time of the First World War. Tom McShannon, he tore up the gridiron during the 1930s. The 40s saw Fred Stevens reach his peak as an All-American baseball player at his beloved Western Michigan University. The 1950s saw the Muskegon Ice Tigers dominate the high school basketball scene such as no team has ever done before or since. The 60s and 70s saw McShannon and Stevens continue their interest in serving the youth of America as coaches and administrators. And in the early part of the 1980s, Orchard View High School would see a multi-talented running back by the name of Curtis Adams reach the top of the ladder as a running back in the National Football League. I got Fred on the brain over here. And in just a few short moments, two more deserving high school honorees will give us a taste of the 1990s. Now I'm going to talk about my buddy Gene Young right here. Many of you people gathered here undoubtedly know that Gene has been my longtime partner, covering high school sports for the past 20-some years. And of course, he is the president of the Hall of Fame. And you know, on a very rare occasion, we have been asked by a few of our listeners, why haven't you guys moved up? Why haven't you covered the Lions, the Pistons, or the U of M, or MSU, or Notre Dame, like my good friend Jim Morris? Why are you guys still here in Muskegon? Well, the answer is really very simple. We've never been asked. Our listeners have heard often how we sometimes put each other down on an occasion or two. Most of the time in a kidding manner. But one thing you will never hear me say is a disparaging word on Gene Young's role as president of the Muskegon Area Hall of Fame. Following the untimely passing of our first president and founder, Dick Hutchins, Gene has taken over the reins, and the Hall of Fame has continued without missing a beat. Many of you perhaps have no idea how many hundreds of hours or how much respect and devotion he has put into making this, as well as past banquets, such an enormous success. At this time, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to call to the speaker stand our president, my partner, and my friend, Gene Young.
Thank you, Jim. Those are very kind words. You read them exactly as I read them. On behalf of the Muskegon Area Sports Hall of Fame and its Board of Directors, I would like to welcome you to the 11th Annual Hall of Fame ceremony. I feel very privileged to introduce to you this evening a hardworking, dedicated, and visionary Board of Directors. Would you please stand as I call your name? Ray Carlson, Vice President. Secretary. John Carter. Tom Clark Jr. Lloyd Cook Jr. Bill McKissis. Treasure, Jim Moyes. We are again excited about this year's inductees, another outstanding group to add to our already distinguished roll. Tonight we'd like to give special thanks to the Muskegon Chronicle, especially publisher Gary Ostrom, who's here tonight. Gary, please stand. You've been so supportive of this hall. For their continued support. The 11-year partnership is responsible for the excellent reputation held by the Hall of Fame. I'd also like to personally thank Tom Kendra, who has run the series of stories leading up to tonight. He's done such a fabulous job, a real excellent young professional journalist from the Muskegon Chronicle. Tom, would you please stand? As you've read in the local paper, our goal is to move into the L.C. Walker Arena, the renovated L.C. Walker, by October 1st. We will be talking to you about helping us make this move by soliciting funds from you, hopefully. A gentleman who's here tonight who has been absolutely fabulous to work with, Director of Leisure Services for Muskegon City, Rick Scott. Please stand, Rick. I'd also like to introduce, as you also have read in the program and the Muskegon Chronicle, we will be hosting the International Museum and Sports Hall of Fame Convention next October, 1988. And we'll be working with 98. I said 88 last year. I was the only one there. The president of the Grand Rapids Sports Hall of Fame, who's here this evening and be working with us on that convention, Jerry Shoemaker. Jerry, would you please stand? We are greatly appreciative of our patrons listed in your program this evening, many of whom have been with us since the first year. In conclusion, I would like, on behalf of the Hall of Fame Board of Directors, thank each and every one of you in attendance tonight for your continued support of the Hall and its newest inductees. Have an enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thank you, partner. For the second consecutive year, we kick off our banquet by introducing to you the 1997 winners, Gene, of our area high school student athletes of the year. An honor depicting not only their athletic feats, but their contributions in academics, citizenship, and community involvement. The award is sponsored jointly by the Muskegon Chronicle and the Sports Hall of Fame. I would like to introduce to you the presenters for these awards. Presenting the award to the female athlete of the year will be our talented and award-winning sports editor of the Chronicle, fellow board member Cindy Fairfield, and presenting the award to the male athlete of the year will be the voice of the Muskegon Community College Jayhawks and our ace roving reporter for WKBZ Sports, Mr. John Arden. Cindy Fairfield and John Arden.
Thank you, Jim. It's an honor to be here tonight to do our second year of honoring the student athletes of the year. Once in a while, an athlete comes along and enters high school, and you know right away she's going to be special. Already, she is taller than most girls and boys her age. She is stronger, and she has that mental toughness normally relegated to seniors who already have been through the wars. Ludington senior Mandy Stowe is such an athlete. We knew Mandy was going to be special, but we didn't know how special until her fourth year of high school culminated. She burst onto the sports scene as a freshman, routinely scoring 20 and 30 points a game and pulling down 10 and 15 rebounds for her girls basketball team. Many doubted whether she could keep up this pace, recalling numerous cases a young athlete cannot survive the pressure or burns out too early. Mandy answered all her doubters by becoming a unanimous all-state basketball selection the next 3 years and capturing the second highest honor in the state as a senior by finishing runner-up for Miss Basketball Honors. As she prepares to enter Michigan on a full-ride basketball scholarship, Mandy leaves behind school records that may never be broken. She scored 2,160 points and had 1,260 career rebounds while leading the Orioles to a 4-year record of 75 and 16. She also excelled on the volleyball court as a middle hitter, where she was chosen among the top 16 players in Class B as All-State. She ran 3 years of track while staying active in her school, where she was on the newspaper staff, a member of National Honor Society, and a teacher and referee for youth basketball camps. Mandy did all of these things while remaining near the top of her class academically with a 3.89 grade point average. We are privileged to present our 1997 Student Athlete of the Year Award to such a deserving candidate. I present to you Mandy Stowe.
I'd like to thank the Chronicle and the Sports Hall of Fame for this award, and my family for supporting me through it all, and my coach, Mr. Cat. He's been great. And my volleyball coach, he couldn't be here tonight, but they've been great. I'd like to thank God.
That was very nice. There are many people who enter this world to face unfair comparisons to their overachieving parents who are very successful in business, politics, athletics, or other professions. Our selection faced an athletic father who excelled in wrestling and being a Michigan high school state champion, placing second in the nation for the Muskegon Community College Jayhawks, and finishing his collegiate career at the University of Michigan by placing 6th in the NCAA wrestling tournament. Our male student athlete of the year set goals as an 8-year-old to not only meet, but exceed his father's wrestling accomplishments. From that goal-setting age of 8, he competed in football, baseball, hockey, and wrestling. He stopped playing baseball after his 9th grade season to focus stronger on his wrestling career. Junior National Greco-Roman Wrestling Competition takes place in the spring of every year, so it was in conflict with his baseball. The major highlights in his long list of athletic credentials were achieved in the sports of football and wrestling. In football, he was a 4-year starter on the defensive line and team captain his senior year of a very successful high school football team. For the past 2 seasons, he was selected to the first team All-Seaway Conference, the All-Area Muskegon Chronicle team, and the WKBZ All-Classes All-Area teams. He was selected All-State Honorable Mention during his junior year, and during his senior year, selected as All-State First Team Class A by the AP, Detroit News, and the Detroit Free Press. This summer, he will be participating in the prestigious East-West High School All-Star Football game held at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing. In wrestling, our selection set many standards that will be extremely hard to achieve or exceed by any future wrestlers. In junior national wrestling, he is a 5-time freestyle and 2-time Greco-Roman state champion. In 1993, he wrestled on the United States World Team that trained in Colorado Springs and competed in Germany. He set a new standard in our area by being a 3-time state champion, ranked number 2 in the nation during his senior season. He set a new state Michigan high school win-loss record by compiling a 167-win, 2-loss high school career record. This year, he was named to the USA Wrestling Dream Team and their All-American team. He was the only Michigan high school wrestler named to these teams this year. He wrestled for that USA Dream Team against the top high school wrestlers in all classes from Iowa, and he defeated their best heavyweight wrestler from Des Moines 6-2. He is the State of Michigan's Dave Schultz Award winner, which is given to one wrestler in each state by the National Wrestling Hall of Fame in Stillwater, Oklahoma. This young man is very civic and community-minded, reflected by the fact that this past year, he spent 1 hour every day mentoring a troubled student, talking and working with him. He also helped his high school football coach build a handicap ramp for a church in the Muskegon Heights area. He achieved a 3.2 grade point average in high school and has accepted a full scholarship to the University of Michigan for wrestling. It's a privilege for me to introduce to you the 1997 Male Student Athlete of the Year Award from Fruitport High School, Mr. Matt Brink.
Thank you. First off, I would like to talk about my family. My mother, Debbie, and my 2 younger sisters, Danielle and Jennifer, have always been there for me and supported me, always been there for me to talk to. I'd like to thank my girlfriend, Cassie, for always being there for me. Also my grandpa and grandma, Brink, for being behind me 100%. Thank you. I would like to then thank my coaches, who have made a difference in my life. My head football coach, Steve Wilson, believed in me and gave me an opportunity to play varsity football for 4 years. This helped me in building my confidence and toughness. My assistant coach, Coach Rieger, taught me that hard work, discipline, and repetition will not only make me a better football player, but a person as well. And my dad, Dan Brink, a wrestling coach. He's truly taught me how to focus and understand. It's not, excuse me, it's not the will to win that's important, but rather the will to prepare to win. Be the best you can. He is the best dad and coach a kid could ever have. Coaches, I hope I have made you proud. In closing, I would like to thank the Muskegon Chronicle, Cindy Fairfield, Tom Kendra, Mike Mashin, especially, the entire board of Muskegon Area's Sports Hall of Fame, and of course all the sports fans in West Michigan. It is my goal to make you proud of me at Michigan. Thank you. Go Blue.
How tough, how hard could that have been for John Hurt, the president of the Muskegon area chapter of the Michigan State University Alumni Association, to see those two award winners go to the University of Michigan. He gave a great speech, but he's a lousy recruiter. One of the many highlights that I always enjoyed while a spectator at this banquet was when, getting back to him again, Tom Fallon would introduce to the audience our past inductees or their next of kin. Those are our idols from the past who have returned to Muskegon once again to welcome this year's group to their select fraternity of greatness. We got a lot of them here tonight. Remember that old crusty coach from the Muskegon Big Reds? We had those great baseball teams in Muskegon High School and piloted the 1951 Big Reds to the mythical Class A state championship, Mr. Harry Potter. Representing Harry, and he wasn't as crusty and gruff as you thought he was. I thought he was a piece of cake. Representing Harry are his daughters Ann Moore and Barbara McMakin and granddaughter Lynn Giles. Say it up, please. You know, there's little doubt if they had the number of teams in the big leagues today as they did when Bob Ludwig and John Heisinger were in their prime. These guys would be even richer than they already are today. Ludwig, as did Heisinger, fell just one step short of making it to the bigs, both making it all the way to the AAA level. In addition, Bob Ludwig was an outstanding football player at Muskegon High School and Michigan State College. Appropriately enough, tonight, he also played for the Outland Zephyrs, perhaps the greatest collection of amateur baseball players to ever play in Muskegon. And Tom Striegel would be happy to know he played his last organized game of baseball with the North Muskegon Druries. Ladies and gentlemen, Bob Ludwig. And was there ever a better high school baseball battery here in Muskegon than the Big Red combo of Johnson pitching to Heisinger? I don't think so. Heisinger, an All-American catcher at Western Michigan University, where he also caught for Jimmy Johnson, returned to Greater Muskegon where he made his mark as a baseball coach, athletic director, and educator at Whitehall High School for better than a quarter of a century. Ladies and gentlemen, the redhead, Johnny Heisinger. Johnny was also a baseball umpire and a basketball referee, but he didn't get into the Hall of Fame for that. But one who did, Dick Dolak. Ed Burton, who had Dick Dolak as a basketball referee many times, would also be the first to make it perfectly clear that Dick Dolak did not make it into our Hall of Fame as a basketball referee. But he sure did his thing in the National Football League for many, many years. A quarter of a century of service wearing those pinstripes, and who can forget him standing underneath that goalpost when Tom Dempsey kicked that field goal, 63 yards. It was Dick Dolak with a hands up right. Dick Dolak, where are you? it just one more time? We go down the LC Walker Arena and hear him give those starting lineups one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, for 50 years or more, he was a PA announcer for his beloved Muskegon High School. Nellie Bose. A real late bloomer in the world of sports was a clumsy ex-Little League catcher who couldn't step into the starting lineup at his high school. But then, following a stint in the U.S. Army, led Muskegon Community College to the National Junior College Finals before becoming an All-American and head coach for Weber State University and beyond. Ladies and gentlemen, our own Gene Fisher's here. One of our local heroes that I think has a perfect attendance at these induction banquets. A town that is now steeped in rich hockey tradition, inducted old number 12 as our first hockey inductee. Once the pride of Kenora, Ontario, but now a pillar of our own community, he's Mr. Hockey, Brian McClay. Last year I stood right up here in this stand and talked about a guy who meant so much to me and my brother Tommy. A guy who founded midget football as we know it today here in Greater Muskegon and was one of the pioneers in Little League Baseball. He was Mr. U Sports over at North Muskegon. Representing the late Lyle Moran here tonight are his daughter, Kay Moran. Her Karami will be happy to know, a former Chippewa cheerleader, and Lyle's son, Frank Moran, class of '59, North Muskegon. They're here. Youngster attending a local football game, and somebody like Bill Duplissis would get off a towering punt. Seemed like there was always some old timer nearby, like John Joseph, who would reply, "Oh gee, that was a nice punt. But you should have seen John Regacy punt the football." Al Perry's not a fool over there. He knows what I'm talking about. A regular on the NCAA championship Wolverine teams of the early 1930s. Let's welcome back former Muskegonites Tiger legend, Johnny Regacy. Well, you know, I didn't need an old timer to tell me about this former Muskegonites Tiger. It was no fun on a bright summer Sunday afternoon to play second base and see Frank Howell step to the plate. Seminole knows what I'm talking about. He was one guy that you didn't say to yourself, "Oh, come on, Busher, hit it to me." He combined speed with power, and he scored 3 runs in Michigan's NCAA championship victory over Stanford. A tear in the gridiron, as well as on the baseball diamond. Let's welcome back home, Dr. Frank Howell. One guy, we're going to talk a little bit about him later, but he did have a little bit of a role in that 56-57 Tiger dynasty. Already a member of the Hall of Fame, Big Ed, Ed Burke. Muskegon's first and only summer Olympian, a former AAU national boxing champion who made it all the way to the quarterfinals in the 1960 Olympics when he got hosed. I mean, he lost a split decision. Oh, so close to winning the gold medal. I see him a lot at the Muskegonites athletic contest even today. Our own Olympian, Phil Baldwin from Muskegonites. The youngest to be recognized tonight comes from Mona Shores High School. She's so young can't even buy her a drink yet, because she was our first female award winner last year. Now at Oakland University, an all-stater at Mona Shores High School, and a great athlete in 3 sports, and a class person. Let's welcome back Jamie Albrecht. A man who really hated to share the microphone with me, but who always had time. The only high school coach ever to pilot 2 different teams to state titles. The ink was hardly dry on his retirement papers when the board last year elected this legend to the Football Hall of Fame. Football coach at Catholic Central, Andres Puffer, and others, Pete Kuchis. I can remember back in the fall of 1952, over at my old alma mater, North Muskegon, where I watched Muskegon St. Mary's and an all-state halfback named James Morse just run roughshod over my beloved North Muskegon Norseman. That was the final game ever played for Muskegon St. Mary's, but certainly not the final game ever played by Jim Morse, who later went on, we all know about it, he became the captain of the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame. A great friend of mine and a former boss. He's been so devoted to coming to these banquets each and every year. Ladies and gentlemen, Jim Morse. And last, and believe you me, certainly not least, is the widow of Jimmy Johnson, now married Johnson Moyes. Jimmy Johnson was one of the greatest baseball players to come out of this area. Made it all the way to the major leagues, pitched for the San Francisco Giants before he came home to become an educator. He could have kept playing baseball, but he wanted to serve the youth of the community in other ways, with the books. And I'll admit, Jimmy Johnson was a better baseball player than me, but maybe I was a little bit better looking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my wife, Mary Johnson Moyes. How appropriate that our presenter of our annual Distinguished Service Award is Muskegon's own Mark Okenen. Mark has written a number of books on baseball. With his first book, Baseball in Muskegon, is where he first wrote about the exploits of Jake Oliver. Since that time, Mark has published 3 books entitled Baseball Memories, depicting this great game as it was back in the first decade of the 20th century, a decade in the 30s, and a decade in the 50s. Last spring, I took my daughter on a spring break, and I know a lot of you people are going to be surprised where I took her. I did not take her to Cancun or the Bahamas or Florida. I took her where else would you take your daughter? He took her to the Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. And it was her idea, but among the many displays in Cooperstown was a trophy case that housed only a handful of books the board especially wanted their viewers to see on display. One of these books was written by Mark Okenen, titled The Uniform Book of Baseball. I told Mark, I don't think there could ever be a better honor to see your work on display in Cooperstown. Mark now has his newest book, just released at the bookstores, The Towns of Minor League Baseball in Michigan. Here to present the Distinguished Service Award is Muskegon's own brilliant author, Mark Okenen. Mark.
Brilliant author, huh? The recipient of this year's Distinguished Service Award is the late John Jake Outland. Mr. Outland was personally responsible for providing Muskegon fans with a quality brand of semi-professional and professional baseball at Marsh Field during the 1940s and was considered the city's grand old man of baseball at the time of his death in 1954. Always a booster of the game in his adopted hometown, Jake's ties to local baseball dated back to his playing days in the factory leagues around World War I. After retiring as a player, he learned the business end of the game in the front office of the Muskegon Club of the Michigan-Ontario League in the mid-1920s. When the Second World War put Muskegon's Michigan State League team out of business, Outman assembled the best local talent available for an independent team to entertain Port City fans. The Outland Zephyrs hosted a galaxy of baseball talent at Marshfield from 1942 to 1947. Among their opponents were many of the great Negro League teams of the period, as well as Mickey Cochran's Great Lakes Navy team. The Detroit Tigers also came here on 2 occasions during the war years, and in the Zephyrs' final year in 1947, the Chicago White Sox entertained the Marshfield faithful. Class A professional baseball returned to Marshfield in 1948 with the Muskegon Clippers of the Central League. Jake Outland was one of the league founders, as well as principal owner and president of the local franchise. Numerous future big league stars made their way into Marshfield during the next 4 summers, either in Clipper uniforms or on visiting teams, including Minnie Minoso, Bob Buell, Frank House, Alex Gramus, Elston Howard, and Jim Greengrass. Declining attendance eventually forced Mr. Outland to sell out, and the league itself went out of business after 1951. Despite the demise of minor league baseball here and elsewhere, we have Jake Outland to thank for keeping Muskegon on the baseball map in his lifetime. Accepting the award on behalf of the Outland family is Jake's grandson and namesake, John Little Jake Outland.
The Outland family would like to thank the Muskegon Area Sports Hall of Fame for honoring John E. Jake Outland in recognition for his contributions to the development and growth of baseball in the Muskegon area. This time I'd like to recognize the family members that are present. A son of Jake's and my father, Don, who's sitting over there at table 30. Bride of 56 years, Donna Jean. That's the thing with me, I always say bride, something, but that's pretty neat, I think. And a grandson and my brother, Dave, and his wife, Marcia. And a great-granddaughter, my daughter, our daughter, and her fiance, our daughter Mindy, and her fiance Norm are sitting there too. We're getting married a week next week, so I'll have the same thing on, I think. I had to say something to loosen myself up a little bit. There's people over there too. Anyway, last but not least, that she's been trying to keep my knees from shaking too much, is my lovely wife Jenny. Just briefly, thinking about my grandfather, I was only 12 when he died, and it doesn't seem possible that next week, right Dad? The 40th next week, June, anyway, 43 years ago. It's quite an honor to have this come so close to his death, if you know, I can say that. But it just doesn't seem possible, you know, it's been that long. And another, just a real quick ditty about baseball. He helped get Little League started. But in June 2nd, 1952, which is next week, 45 years ago, was the first Little League game in Muskegon at Marshfield. I don't know, maybe some of you folks remember that. You played it? Okay. You played it. I played it that game. Were there snow fences? Okay, that's what I thought. They've already gone in special snow fences at Marshfield. So the little guys. Sorry, Jim. But anyway, I remember my grandfather as someone who recognized the value of all people. utilize their talents in helping to promote baseball and other sport activities in Muskegon. I could go on and on and on. I'm just so doggone proud as I look at this plaque up here. I'm getting a little emotional. But from the entire Altman family and myself, we want to say a happy thank you for honoring our father and our grandfather. And once again, I thank the committee and everyone involved. Thank you.
I'd like to say I went 3 for 3 in that game, but I struck out twice. You didn't do any better, Taylor. Wally McRae, the old fireballing right-hander, put us down. The capital letter M in McShannock could also have stood for Muskegon. Many of you have seen this class program. See the picture of Tom with a big M on his cap for his beloved Big Reds. For like his colleagues who preceded him at Muskegon, Leo Revin and Harry Potter, when you heard the name McShannock, you also thought of Muskegon. As Tom McShannock gave so much of his life to making Muskegon and Muskegon High School a better place. McShannock in his childhood days practically grew up in the shadows of Hackley Stadium, although many of our contemporaries best remember Tom as a successful coach and an innovative athletic director at his Muskegon High School. Tom McShannock was a terrific athlete. At Muskegon High School, Tom was a triple threat star in football, basketball, track and field. A 2-year starter in football as a running back, Tom completed his senior year at Muskegon High by being tagged to the All-Conference and the All-State team. Tom lettered 3 years in basketball and won the equivalent of what we know today as Mr. Basketball for the state of Michigan by being named the outstanding player at the 1934 state basketball championships. Tom also excelled in track and field, winning 3 conference championships, and he took first place in the high jump in the Class A regionals. But it was in football where Tom McShannock would truly shine. Moved from the backfield to the difficult center position by MSC coach Charlie Bachman, McShannock became a 2-year starter for the Spartans. In 1937, Shannock starred in a team that has been forever remembered by Spartan historians, en route to an 8-1 regular season record, including a 19-14 victory over those arrogant Wolverines. Tom managed to get himself into the scorebook. As a two-way performer, Tom also starred on defense, and his shining moment came when he blocked and recovered a punt in the end zone against the previously undefeated Temple Owls. Following the regular season, the 1937 team became the first Spartan team ever to play in a bowl game. Although they lost the Orange Bowl game in Miami 6-0 to Auburn, McShannock, with one heads-up play, nearly pulled off the victory. The only Spartan highlight on the afternoon came when Tom intercepted a pass from his linebacking position during the first quarter. Then when he ran into a flock of would-be tacklers, he alertly lateral the ball to a teammate. The teammate was tackled from behind by the last man from Auburn who had a shot at making the tackle. A year after graduating from Michigan State, Tom answered the call to duty and served in the Army Air Corps until the war's end in 1945. Tom then had a brief 2-year stint at Owasso High School as an assistant football, basketball, and track coach. In 1947, a call came from Muskegon High School asking Tom, well, that was a ridiculous question, to return home and assist with the Big Reds. A few days ago, I asked his lovely bride, Katie, just how long did it take Tom to make this decision? She said, nothing against Owasso, but it took as long as whatever it took to drive from Owasso to Muskegon. And for the next 33 years, Tom served his alma mater in a variety of ways. Wherever he was needed, Tom would answer the call. At one time or another, he was a head coach in basketball, track, cross country, and swimming. And it was no accident that Muskegon posted one of their great teams of all time when Tom was the assistant football coach on that state championship Big Red football team in 1951. And during the summer months, for 17 years, Tom was a fixture at Pier Marquette Park, serving his community as Director of Lifeguards on the popular beach. For 14 years, Tom was the AD at Muskegon High School, where he was elected as Michigan's AD of the Year in 1980. 5 years ago, before he passed away, Tom received the Charles E. Forsyth Award, the highest honor given by the Michigan High School Athletic Association to reward excellence throughout the interscholastic community. Tom experienced a couple of momentous events as recently as 1986. Number one, his daughter Ann, who is here tonight, all the way from Portland, Oregon, gave birth to triplets. 2 months later, Tom scurried home and was at the Pontiac Silverdome to see the Big Reds win the state football championship. When asked by an inquisitive Chronicle reporter on which event gave him the biggest thrill, Tom just refused to answer. 3 years ago, correction, 3 weeks ago it was, I worked the 42nd annual Greater Muskegon Track and Field Championships. Need I tell you that it was Tom McShannick who pioneered that great event? In 1989, the athletic directors of Muskegon began honoring officials for their service at this meet. Tom was one of 3 who received a handsome plaque for their years of service. Hall of Famer Ray Kyle and my former coach at our Muskegon, Wes Bunce, were the others. In life, Tom McShannick was a quiet and humble man. At his retirement party in 1980 that was attended by hundreds of people, Tom ended the evening by saying simply that he had just been a lucky fellow. Well, we in Muskegon were the lucky ones to have such a class guy. And I, too, was lucky that I could have known Tom for such a long time. Yesterday, I talked to Tom Fallon, and the first thing he said to me, wouldn't Tom McShannick have been so proud tonight? Before Tom passed away 4 years ago, he had frequented a number of these past banquets. And if you were with us this evening, yes, he would be honored by the city that he loves so much. Here to accept the plaque, to justifiably, if not belatedly, inducts Tom McShannick into the Greater Muskegon Hall of Fame is Tom's devoted wife for 51 years, Kate McShannick. Katie?
His whole life, and he went to Muskegon High School. He played athletics there. He coached there. He was the athletic director there. And if you heard him talk, this was the only place that anybody could ever want to live in their whole life. This is where we had to live. We raised 3 children here, and they are here tonight. I don't know if they want to stand up or not, but Tom Jr. is here from Mill Valley, California. Dan is here from Midland, Michigan, and Dan is the one who followed in his father's footsteps. Dan is the athletic director at Midland Dow High School. And Ann is the one with the triplets. She's here from Portland, Oregon. When Tom graduated from high school, this is something he was always kind of proud of, that he received the C.W. Marsh Athletic Cup. And in the years of his 3 children, 2 of them received the same athletic cup from Muskegon High School in the year that they graduated from high school. So I think it's kind of a record to have 3 people from one family win that athletic cup. when I didn't even go to that school, so I wasn't even eligible. So, Tom always knew that people in Muskegon were very good to him. They always did so much to help him achieve what he did in life. And I have a couple of stories I'd like to tell. Just, they're kind of funny, some of them, but really at the gist of it. When Tom went in 10th grade in high school, he went out for basketball, and this was, in the 30s, and he didn't have a pair of gym shoes. And so he got a pair of something. He said they were terrible. So he was sitting there, he dressed for the game. This was on the JVs. And Coach Potter came through the locker room and he said to Tom, "You can't wear those shoes and play basketball." And Tom said, I thought, well, this is the end of my career. And he said, I sat there and I didn't know what I was going to do. Do I take them off and go home, or what do I do, And he said, turned around, Coach Potter came back, took off his gym shoes, gave them to him, and said, "Here, wear mine." So he played in Potter's shoes for about 3 games, and Coach Redmond came through and said he wanted to play on the varsity. So Tom said he was thrilled to death, he's going to play on the varsity. So he dressed for the game, and he's sitting on the bench, and all ready to go out on the floor, and Potter comes in and says, "If he's going to play on your team, then he's going to wear your shoes." I can't wear my shoes. Thompson, I took off Potter's shoes and gave them back to him, and I looked at Redmond's feet, and I knew, well, this is impossible. And he said, I figured that my basketball career was done again. And he said, so the two of them stood there in the locker room and argued back and forth for about 5 minutes, and finally Redmond came back with a pair of shoes and gave them to him. So for years, those 3 of them used to sit and laugh about them. And but I'm just showing you that, they were both very helpful to Tom. Then another thing, he always had a lot of people that were willing to give him opportunities and experiences. And this is the quarterly, I think, from the Michigan Athletic Association. It's from October 1984, I think. And I'll just read you this little bit. It said, I can't read upside down. Tom McShannon, former athletic director at Muskegon High School, has attended every final boys basketball tournament game since 1946. Now this was 1984, I think. Tom saw his first state final in 1930, traveling to the game in a Model A convertible. Now he would tell about that. He said the game was held in Flint. There was no heat in that car, and it was in March. And he said, they went over in the daytime, and it was, bearable. But he said you could figure that he was in the 7th grade or 6th or 7th grade, I don't know which it was. He said, when I saw that game, I thought, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I made up my mind, I hope someday I can play in a game like that. And then he said, on the way home, it got so cold that I kept thinking, if I don't freeze to death, maybe I can play in a game like that. And like he said tonight, that he did play in that game, and it was in a final game. So he was very thankful to people in Muskegon for all the opportunities they gave him and all the things that they've done. And I'm sure that if he were here tonight, he would say thank you, Muskegon. I had a great life here. Thank you.
individual inductees honored here this evening had in common great athletic skills. They love to compete, and they love to compete in a multiple of sports. It was a fairly routine practice during the heyday of Tom McShannick and Fred Stevens to be a triple threat star, but it became a rarity during the 1980s. There was, however, a huge exception over at Muskegon Orchard Views High School. Curtis Adams was like many of his colleagues who preceded him into the Hall of Fame. They not only participated in many sports, but they excelled. You cannot think of Orchard View High School, start talking about athletics, without mentioning the greatest cardinal of them all, Curtis Adams. Just the other day, my curiosity got the best of me, and I stopped and strode into the OB gymnasium and peered up at the record board to see how many records Curtis Adams still has in track and field. Can you believe 5 years, or make it 16 years now since he graduated, he still has 5 school records. At one point, he had as many as 7. He was also a terror on the basketball court. Not until just a couple of years ago could anybody come along to supplant Curtis as a single season or career scoring leader at OB. He concluded his 3-year stint as a varsity performer for head coach Mike Henry by averaging better than 17 points a game for his career. Now, despite those lofty accomplishments, Curtis got into the Hall of Fame for what he did in football. At Orchard View, under the coaching of Louis Graham, Curtis became the first player in Greater Muskegon's illustrious history to rush for more than 3,000 yards in a career. In just 23 games in which he saw action as a high school Gritter, Curtis averaged nearly 8 yards per carry. Despite those impressive stats, I doubt very much if Central Michigan head football coach at the time and current athletic director Herb Durrani, who incidentally is here tonight, could envision the impact that Curtis would make when he enrolled at CMU in the fall of 1981. After seeing limited action as a freshman, he then ran wild for the Chippewas for 3 years as a regular tailback. By the time he wound up his career as a senior in 1984, he had literally rewritten the record book, not only for Central Michigan University, but the entire Mid-American Conference as well. For 3 straight years, Adams was an all-Mid-American Conference player. He established Chippewa records in net rushing with over 4,000 yards and showed his amazing durability and toughness by setting a record in career rushing attempts. 761 times he pounded away against opposing defenses. Adams capped his career by rushing for 43 touchdowns, a record that not only eclipsed marks set by such former CMU and NFL immortals as Jim Badoli and Walter Beach, but was a record for any Mid-American Conference performer. Even with today's dependence on the one-back, high formation, tailback offense, more than a decade later, Adams' career net rushing totals ranked 3rd in MAC history. The United Press International Board of Orders, made up of coaches from throughout the nation, thought so highly of Curtis, they selected the former Orchard View great, the 2nd team All-American honors, the highest position for a Muskegon area Gritter since the heyday of Earl Mormon. It didn't take long for CMU to recognize Curtis' incredible achievements as a Chip. In October of 1995, Curtis became one of 76 members to be enshrined in the CMU Hall of Fame. Curtis's feats didn't go totally unnoticed by NFL scouts, but San Diego got a steal when they drafted Curtis in the 8th round. Curtis played 4 years as a running back in the National Football League, a position so vulnerable to injuries that the average career spans but a couple of years. Curtis distinguished himself by performing more than averagely with a cartridge, rushing for nearly 1,000 yards during his pro career. In 1986, Curtis led San Diego in rushing with 366 yards in 118 attempts. I can remember sitting in front of the telly on that Monday night in 1986 as Curtis slashed and darted for nearly 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. I can't tell you how much pride swelled through my mind when I saw him perform, thinking, that's our Curtis. I could just envision Curtis greeting the horde of reporters who were gathered around his locker following the contest. He would flash that unforgettable, toothy grin of his. Earlier this season, my broadcasting partner Gian Young and I watched Curtis Adams refereeing a JV basketball game. And as we were setting up in preparation for our broadcast, I said to Gene, "You think those kids playing in this JV game have any idea and how great an athlete that referee was?" And since I began radio play-by-play work in Muskegon back in 1976, Curtis becomes the second during my generation to make the Hall of Fame. Undoubtedly, many more athletic greats from the past couple of decades will follow in Curtis's footsteps. The young man who gave us so many throws on the gridiron, the hardwoods, and on the asphalt track, now deservedly takes his place among the other greater Muskegon immortals, the son of Rosemary and the late Paul Adams, who sent 8 of their 10 children to college, now becomes Orchard View High School's first inductee in the Muskegon Area Hall of Fame. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Curtis Adams.
This is truly an honor. I see so many people in here that I know, that I grew up with, my brothers and sisters grew up with. It's like a family affair. Briefly, I won't be in too long. Talk about coaches. My career from grade school to college, I had some of the best coaches. High school, not only football, but basketball, had Mike Henry. That young man, I can say young man, he was pretty tough on me. I remember when I first come with you, I was probably three black families that in that area at that time. And I remember when I was in 9th grade, I thought I could dunk. I'd go and hang on a rim, and there's Mike Henry. Boy, he was all over me. I'll never forget that. But Mike was a heck of a coach. He taught me well. He taught not only basketball, but everyday skills. And I appreciate it, Mike. Louis Graham, the toughest ball-head man I ever known. I think I'd be 10-0. Louis Graham, he had some shorts, he had shorts on, he had a short sleeve shirt on, and I know this guy is cold. But he really had something. I'd like to thank Louis. My coaches from Central. Herb, head coach. It seemed like he was the head coach because he was the shortest of the bunch. Coach Croft, Coach Petty. I remember my first days at Central. Coach Johnny and Coach Petty talking. I don't know if they know I heard what they were saying, but I heard Coach Johnny say, "Hey, I thought you said that kid was fast." But I had been up really almost 24 hours. We were coming back from, I think it was Indiana. I was running summer track, and he pissed me off so bad. I didn't do good in the 40, but I think I'm winning the show run there. Coach Paul, he's the guy that recruited me, him and his family. Coach Paul was like a dad to me. Wife like a mother, he 2 kids, and had this big old black dog that didn't like me. Great family. Coach This guy was tremendous with me. Sometimes I got a little carried away, and he brought me down very fast, and I really appreciate it. He would yell, he would do anything he had to do to get me to understand what I had to do, and he done that very well, and I appreciate that too. Old coach, Coach Durant. He's the AD now at Central. Players coach. Everybody loved him, and he loves everybody. And he's done a heck of a job with me. His family, his wife, real nice lady. They're like a family. The whole Central clan was like a family to me, and I really appreciate it. I'd like to say thank you to all my coaches. Thank you very much.
Last year about this time, actually it was in the fall, I don't have any idea why I was invited to be the speaker up at the induction ceremonies at Thurlby Field. But I was on the dais, and I followed Herb Duramity. Herb thought everybody was there was from Traverse City. Herb sat up there and talked about the virtues of Traverse City and how this is the best doggone football town in the state of Michigan. And Herb says, well, I gotta leave right now because I gotta catch a plane and go to Virginia. And then the announcer called up Jimmy Moyes. And I jumped all over Herb Duramity. He says, what do you think we have here in Muskegon? Chopped liver for football? They won 3 state championships up there, and we won 25. But I could sing Herb because he was already long gone. You know, I have found that whenever the name Fred Stevens pops up in a conversation, before anybody mentions his successes on the athletic field, they always, and I mean always, start out by saying, Fred Stevens, my, what a nice guy. How many times have I heard, as a member of this board, one of his former athletes at Western Michigan University, to a man, Fred Stevens, he may be a better person. I owe so much to Coach Fred. And although I never met Fred until earlier this evening, I knew I was going to be meeting somebody very special. And indeed, Fred Stevens is a very nice man, but he didn't get into the Hall of Fame just because he's a nice guy. Gene Young's a nice guy. He's not in the Hall of Fame. No, Fred Stevens got into the Hall of Fame for his athletic and academic achievements. It all began at nearby Hart High School, continued for more than 50 years at his beloved Western Michigan University. The townsfolk of Hart knew long ago they had something special in the son of Mr. and Mrs. Lewis Stevens. While attending Hart High School, Fred earned 12 letters while performing for the Pirates. He started all 4 years on the football, basketball, and baseball teams. And he, like Tom McShannon and Curtis Adams, excelled in them all. As a freshman in baseball, he stepped right into the first base position and hit well over 300 for all 4 years. After starting at an end position for his first 2 years in football, he was switched to the backfield for his final 2 seasons in a Pirate uniform, where he developed into a triple threat star, running, passing, and punting Hart's good teams to great success. Naturally, this gifted athlete likewise led the Pirate basketball team in scoring in his junior and senior years. Liked by all his classmates, off the field as well. Fred was elected student body president his senior year. This popular 3-sport star might have made all the teeny boppers in his Oceana County city swoon, but many a heart of a gal was broken as Fred only had eyes for Ann Whitstein. Just the other day, I was up in Hart. I talked to one of Fred's former fans up there. said with sincere adulation, Ann was the only girl Fred ever dated. Some 60 years later, this couple remained as Fred and Ann Stevens. Along with his lifelong companion Ann, Fred's biggest fan was undoubtedly his father Louis. When Louis Stevens completed his duties of carrying the mail around the Hart area, he would quickly scoot over to watch Fred's teams practice, no matter what sport was in season. The gentleman I talked to up there kind of explained with tongue-in-cheek. He says, you know, I don't really know how well the Pirate coaches up there really took a liking to that. But you modern-day coaches will probably remember that. But he certainly was supportive of his young Fred. When he enrolled at Western Michigan University in the fall of 1941, I'm sure he didn't realize at the time that he would devote nearly a half-century to athletics and academics on the WMU campus. Not many would believe that anybody from a little Class C school in Oceana County would have a major impact at a college such as Western. To be able to be a regular in one sport would be a major accomplishment. The odds of starting in 3, nearly an impossibility. But he did it, earning 8 varsity letters for the Brown and Gold. Fred's impact on the Bronco campus was felt immediately. The 1941 football team won 8 straight games to complete a perfect season, the last achieved by our Western football team. And among Fred's teammates on that squad was Grand Haven's Frank Sikori, long ago inducted into our Hall of Fame. Fred was also a regular on the Bronco basketball team and would be the starting first baseman on Western's Baseball 9 for 3 straight seasons. Like many of our patriotic citizens during the war years, Fred, too, answered the call to duty. After he left Western in 1943, he graduated from the Midshipman School at Columbia University. As an ensign in the Navy, he served on an LST in both the Atlantic and Pacific War theaters, his ship being one of the first to go into Japan. Following the war, Fred returned to Western where he lost none of his skills on the diamond. In 1946, Fred captained the Bronco 9, where he's capped his career by being selected to the first team All-American squad. The first Bronco to be named an All-American in any sport. After the season, Fred played in the East-West College All-Star game at historic Fenway Park. So highly respected was Fred Stevens that he was the only All-Star from the Muskegon to play the entire game. Fred was offered a contract by the Detroit Tigers after completing his college eligibility, and he turned down what almost certainly would have been a successful pro career to go into coaching. He remained on the WMU campus to serve a 10-year stint as a coach and athletic director at Kalamazoo State High School. In 1956, he joined the Western Michigan staff as assistant football coach and track coach as well, and he remained on the Bronco football staff for 19 years. But baseball was his first love, other than that. And maybe his happiest years were those as a freshman baseball coach from 1958 to 1969. In 1980, Stevens was inducted into the WMU Athletic Hall of Fame, and in 1984 was named recipient of the Alumni W Club Man of the Year Award before retirement in 1985. Although it was as a baseball player where Fred Stevens may have made his major contribution, there are many in this audience who would probably disagree, where they will tell you that Fred Stevens did much more, like prodding and encouraged his players not only to be good athletes, but stayed in touch with his players until they would receive their degree. For Fred Stevens, getting a good education was more important than just becoming a good jock. And look at how many of his boys among us tonight went on to become educators. Dan McShandy, Dave Cook, Ed Schroeder, Lloyd Swomus, Charlie Michelson, and our own Hall of Famers, John Huizinga and the late Jimmy Johnson, just to name a few. And I know doggone well I missed some guys here, I apologize. A man who was affectionately known to his players as Coach Fred, now becomes the first athlete out of Hart High School to be selected to the Muskegon Area Hall of Fame Ladies and gentlemen, Frank Stevens.
No, there's just a little bit of truth in the old saying that the older you get, the better your work. Wise man once told me that if you want help along the way, you ought to surround yourself with good people. And I would like to just share with you some of the Muskegon people that helped me along the way. Even though Jim stole part of my speech and acceptance, I'm going to say it again anyway. And I'm going to start in the beginning. Okie Johnson, Leo Redmond, Harry Potter. You didn't go to Western Michigan at the time I did and not know about the Muskegon Trio. Harry Potter, of course, never let me forget, nor did he ever forgive me when he brought his baseball team to Hart to play. My dad was the umpire behind the plate. And my uncle was the umpire on the base. Never let me forgive. Jack Ty, he talked and I listened. Frank Corey was my freshman football coach. Dave Witzel, Paul Griffin. Dave's mother and my mother are sisters. Tall Paul, of course, comes by the Griffin name from the male gender, but it's a family affair. Ike Tepford and Paul Soper, I watched them play when I was playing in high school, and their performance, of course, was inspiration enough. Ira Flagston, a friend of my dad's. Steve Saratsky, Jack Weisenberger, teammates. Jimmy Johnson, Jimmy was on a level all by himself. Les David, a friend. Steve Slukas sent us his son, John. Ray Kyle, a friend. John Heisinger, I've tried to recruit red-headed catchers ever since you were a kid. Jerry Collins, Jerry was always part of the solution, never part of the problem. And Jerry Collins and Ed Schroeder, keep those cards and letters coming, please. Pete Kuchis and Roger Chavarini and I spent many hours going over football film. Tom McShannock sent us his son Dave. The 1956 and 57 basketball team. We had a pretty good basketball team at that time, and believe it or not, part of our preparation was to watch you guys play. We did that twice a year for those 2 years, and we learned. Curtis, you were great. I enjoyed watching you play, even if you did go to that school up north. And Jake Outland, the Mr. Baseball, the right man at the right place at the right time, and he always did the right thing. And the beat goes on for my family. Charles and Josephine still live in Muskegon. Their sons, Louie and Matt, played for us. Connie and Tom live in the area. Carol and Ray live in the Upper Peninsula, but we'll forgive them for that. Ray coached in the area for many, many years. Joanne and David have been in and out of Muskegon on their bikes more times than they can count. Ann Marilyn is a graduate of Howell School of Business. But there's a strange thing that happened on the way to the park. When shortly after she left, they changed the name. I don't know whether that means anything or not, but it's now Muskegon School of Business or whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, I've had 50-some odd years of one-year contracts. No free agency, no arbitration, no injury reserve clause. Just get it done or risk being the player named later in a big trade. It's been old home week, guys, and for your information, practice starts in 2 hours, and don't be late.
About a dozen years ago, I wrote a feature at what I felt was the best basketball team ever in the state of Michigan. And what had raised my PQ to create this story was an article in one of our favorite Detroit newspapers. The column's subject matter dealt with high school basketball dynasties of the past. To say that I was displeased when I saw nary a mention of our Muskegon Heights Tiger teams of the 1950s was indeed a gross understatement. But how many times have we Port City followers felt we've been overlooked by the big city publications? Well, tonight we clearly demonstrate that we have not forgotten our greatest basketball team of them all, the Heights Tigers of 56 and 57. And we would surely be remiss if we, however, didn't mention the team that undoubtedly created the beginning for this great dynasty, the Class A state champs of 1954. It is a certainty that most of the 56-57 Cagers were inspired by the accomplishments set by that great Cage squad. From 1954 to the 1957 season, the Heights Tigers tasted defeat at the hands of just two teams, Benton Harbor and once by Grand Rapids Christian. Only two starters returned for the regional championship team of 1955. And one of those will be lost in mid-year due to graduation. As a matter of fact, three Tigers, Bob Slazer, Ted Perry, both regulars, and backup center Cliff Cummings will be lost in late January. Hardly a harbinger of great things to follow. After a hard-fought win on the road in the season opener against Grand Rapids Central, the Tigers returned home to play in the first ever game in the new C.F. Polk Gymnasium. A packed house saw Big Ed Burton pour in 32 points, leading the Heights to a victory over Grand Rapids Union. In late January, the Tigers made the last game for Slazek, Perry, and Cummings a memorable one, winning their 9th straight game of the year, 85-61, over the Holland Dutch. Big Ed, he stole most of the departing seniors' thunder as he exploded for 45 points. In the ensuing 41 years of Heights basketball tradition, Ed's record still remains untouched. The Tigers saw their dreams for an undefeated season go up in smoke on March 2nd, 1956, when a young, gangly sophomore by the name of Chet Walker drilled a shot from the top of the key with just a few seconds remaining to lead arch rival Benton Harbor to a 52-50 win over our Tigers. This was the only game Coach Oscar E. Johnson Tigers would lose in 2 years and would be the only home loss for the next 5. Coach Johnson certainly must have felt mixed emotions when his Tigers captured the regional title in Grand Rapids with a hard-fought 40-33 win for the Grand Rapids Crescent Polar Bears, the closest any opponent would come to snatching victory away from the Heights for the next 2 years. For coaching, That well-drilled Crescent team was Oki's son, Bob Johnson, who was in attendance this evening. Thanks to my good friend Tom Campinga, I too, along with thousands of other Fort City faithful, will then follow the Tigers down to Lansing. Wins over Saginaw Arthur Hill, Detroit Catholic Central, set up the championship game with Hamtramck. Big Ed, William McCarty, Ronnie Robinson, and Kennedy Howell all scored in double figures in the Heights 63-53 time, while a young sophomore, caller from the reserve team, O.C. McCarty, chipped in with 8. The lone graduating senior, playmaker Leon Smith, chipped in with 6. Now with 4 starters returning as well as 2 other 11, was it any wonder that Heights followers were confident of another state title in 1957? The only question mark would be, how would the Tigers fare when they lost Kennedy Howell to graduation at the semester break? You know, one could not blame the 1957 Tiger team if they can't understand why today's so-called basketball immortals can't make a lousy free throw. In their 81, Coach Gifford knows what I'm talking about. In their 81-45 run over the Muskegon Big Reds, the Tiger sharpshooters canned 22 out of 22 free throws. Can be done. The following game with Holland marked the last time a Howell would appear in a Heights lineup dating all the way back to 1938, with Kennedy being the youngest and the last to don a Heights uniform. And Kennedy disappointed no one as he scored 16 points to lead Heights to their 8th straight victory of the season, 84-48 over Holland. After Coach Johnson's red-hot crew defeated an outmanned Muskegon Catholic squad for their 11th straight, ticket manager Ray Gillespie began divulging plans for distribution of state finals tickets, much to the chagrin of Okie. But the wily coach, he needn't worry. The Tigers suffering any letdowns. The closest any team would come to the Heights was 14 points. Ben Harper fell to this talented machine as 3,200 fans crammed into the recently built Downstate Tiger Gymnasium. The victory proved costly to the Heights as starting guard Pete Pullitt suffered a leg injury, but his shoes were more than ably filled by all-around sports star Lloyd Swamis. Opening the 1957 tournament, the Tigers survived a pair of games against teams using stalling tactics, and then again began steamrolling all their opponents. Traverse City Records Eagle sports editor Ken Bell, as biased towards his beloved Traverse City Trojans as Jim Henderson was towards the Big Reds. He wrote a pregame article that promised a TC victory over the Heights at CMU's Fieldhouse if they played as well against the Tigers as they did against Saginaw High in claiming their regional championship. 1,500 disappointed, ticketless fans stood outside the Stoll outdoors as the Heights rolled past Traverse City in the quarterfinals, 79-52. Big Ed Burton put on a show that is yet to be equaled in Greater Muskegon history. Ed tallied 44 points and pulled down 31 rebounds in the Tigers' run. The Tigers then took care of business at MSU's Jennison Fieldhouse, first knocking out Ben Harper 74-52, featuring future NBA great Chet Walker, and then disposing of Detroit Austin, led by another future NBA star, Dave DeBusschere, 61-49. The win over Austin made it 27 in a row for this incomparable group of Cajuns. And Coach Okie Johnson would bring back to the Port City their 3rd state championship trophy in 4 years. And how many of us here tonight were among the thousands 40 years ago who lined Peck Street the following day when the champs returned home? All along the parade route, one could clearly hear the old familiar chant of Tigers, Tigers. We ask, and when I call your name, you would all get your plaque for Mr. Gene Young. It's unbelievable how many people that are here tonight representing this great dynasty. Ladies and gentlemen, your 1956, 1957 state championship Muskegon Heights Tigers. First, hold your applause until they all get out here, and then we're going to tear the roof off and show them the support that we have for them. Terry Banta. And coming here all the way from Orlando, Florida, Roland Bingham. Now residing in Okemos, Michigan, Bud Boomers. Our fellow board member on the Hall of Fame was called up from the JV team that year. Floyd Cook, Jr. Cliff Cummings. David Fox. Making a trip in here today from Plainwell, Michigan, Richard Hansen. And all the way from Inglewood, California, the last of the great Howells, the youngest anyway, Kenny Howell. And representing the great coach, the late Okie E. Johnson, is that guy that battled them the closest they ever had in any tournament game. The son of Okie Johnson, Bob Johnson. He not only played for the Heights, he coached the state championship team later on. Great running back from Arizona State University as well. Former board member, good friend, O.C. McCarty. And representing his brother, who unfortunately passed away not too long ago, one of the great Tiger basketball players, made the all-tournament team in both 1956 and 57. For his brother Willie, here's Cleo McCarty. Also not here tonight, passed away, Michael Murphy and Lieutenant Miles. Also not with us, who also has passed away, is Art Oliver. The one who hasn't passed away, certainly, is Pete Pelotas. G&L fame. I remember my mother used to bring those home, lunch hour, 5 for $1. And certainly this guy wasn't the best basketball player, but no doubt he's the richest. Ron Pysek. Get him up for a donation, Gene. One of the greatest of all, the Muskegon Heights Tigers. Maybe an unheralded hero on that team. A great player at Western Michigan University, Ronnie Robinson. I know he's in there. Representing his brother Don, who unfortunately cannot be with us this evening because he's on a trip. Oh, that poor guy, he had to go to Las Vegas over there. He said to look for more jewelry. Representing Don Sanborn, brother Dean. An all-around athlete at Muskegon Heights, a star in football, basketball, and baseball fields. He also whipped me in ping pong one year in a city tournament. Bob Slazak. The playmaker in that 56 championship team, Dr. Leon Smith. All-around athlete who also played football at Western Michigan University. Starter in that 57 championship team, Lloyd Swamus. And one of, I think about 15 managers on that team. But he says the best. From Grand Rapids, Paul Van Overen. And alphabetically, last, certainly not least, from Portage, Michigan, Ron Zimmer. I know we got one more to go, but here they are. Year 1956. I got a couple other guys here. Hold on. I got two more guys. There's a lot of guys here. Steve Jackson is here tonight. Yay! And also Nate Hunter. There they are, ladies and gentlemen, you're 56. I think we better bring the captain of the team, both years, an All-American, and the greatest that ever played the game here in Greater Muskegon. Ladies and gentlemen, Big Ed. Ed.
Executive privilege here because of being on the board and being one of the younger members of this fabulous team. I'd like to share two quick stories. First of all, there was an article in the paper last night that indicated that one of our team members indicated that the Heights was a running and shoot team and had no plays. Let me assure you that we had at least 3 plays. The first play was, give it to Ed. The second play was, if you couldn't find Ed, pass it around until Ed could be found. The third play was, if play 1 and 2 didn't work, you called timeout. But for some mysterious reason, they rarely work in a game situation. But we did have design plays. Now, the second story is, when I was on the regional final team, and Willie fouled out early in the 4th quarter. And Okie looked down the bench, and he would give you that, I really don't want to do this, but I've got to do it because of the situation look. And he would scratch his head and shake his head. Cook, you bonehead, come on. came down shaking like a leaf on a tree because I had just turned 15. And going into that game, Ed pulled me over to the side and said, Floyd, you can do this. But whatever you do, don't shoot that ball unless your hand gets caught in the net. I followed orders. And I was fortunate enough to get fouled while standing near the basket. I made the first free throw, and the second one just sort of danced around the rim and sort of rolled off, and out of nowhere came this baseball mitt of a hand that did that and did this. And you talking about one happy little young 15-year-old. But needless to say, this is one of the most proud moments in my life to have played with these gentlemen. Because I look back at that picture now, and to realize that we were 14, 15, 16, 17, there's a rumor that some were 18. Maybe there's a few people who don't like your wife quite as well as you do, but marry her anyway. And I did. And I married Queen Burton. Please stand up. I married her 38 years ago, June the 20th, and it's been a good 38 years. All 38 of them, not one, not two, all 38. But before I sit down, I don't know if you give a plaque for being the most inducted person into the Hall of Fame. I think Pokey Johnson might be at the top of the list because he would be here tonight too. But in 1989, when I sat here at this table, I think in your seat, Elder, I sat here and I watched this drip. And I made a statement at that point that I had found out a year before that I was a diabetic. And if you know a diabetic, have talked to a diabetic, have seen a diabetic, have even heard of a diabetic, you know the one problem that a diabetic has is frequent urination. They did it again. But again, I thank all of you. I love all of you. All my friends. As I love you. I thank you.
There is one thing that Ed told me that I'm not going to forget, but he did. The cheerleaders. Remember that, Ed? I think we got some here tonight. I know Carol was here. Any of the cheerleaders from that 56-57 Tiger team here in attendance? I know we got one there. Well, we've now just closed another chapter in a book similar to the one that I've been writing for the past few years, a book that may never end. This banquet and the presentation of these plaques is just a small thank you that we, your fans and followers from the Muskegon area, can bestow upon you and to show our appreciation as to really how much you meant to us over the years. You now have joined a very, very elite group, the Muskegon area Sports Hall of Fame. And it is still mind-boggling to us as to the number of people that are still out there and what is a seemingly bottomless pit of talent from this great community. And now we have spread open our arms to welcome in the induction of Curtis Adams, the stars of the 1980s. I would like to again thank the Muskegon crowd, Gary Oster, Leonard Carlson, and that terrific sports staff. Also printed that great souvenir program that you can take home tonight. And I don't want to thank Tommy Kendra because all those great articles he had in the paper this week, I had to go home and rewrite all this stuff. He did such a terrific job, and it's great that we have such talent on the sports staff at the Muskegon Chronicle to support the Rebecca Harding and the staff here at the Muskegon Holiday Inn. A really classy place for a classy affair close to the beautiful shores of Muskegon Lake. Well, people think it's beautiful. And thanks to the people behind the scenes. Mike Bogus, the sound system. Blaine Hotz, who has filmed this banquet each and every year. And if you, there's Blaine right back there, if you want a copy of the video of tonight's banquet or other past banquets, see Blaine Hotz. Donna Clark for her work setting up the hospitality suite. Board member Ray Carlson, perhaps had the most thankless job of them all, trying to come up with a ticket for everybody to get in here. He's made many friends out of there tonight, but he's also probably made some enemies this week. But he's really a nice guy, like Fred Stevens. And thanks to our loyal patrons, many of whom have been with us since the beginning, for all their support. A better group of season ticket holders doesn't exist. And thanks especially to my wife, who's put up with my sports fanaticism. And I'd be less than candid if I didn't tell you she's given me a couple of tongue lashings along the way that I certainly deserve. And a final word of thanks to our president, Gene Young. And Gene, this will be probably the last time I'm ever going to say anything good to you until next year's banquet. I'd like to have you, this is the guy you really got to thank tonight. Gene Young, stand up, take a photo. Friends and fans, for once again making this the most enjoyable evening. I see people out there who have been to each and every one of these banquets, and we certainly hope to see you again in the future. Your support is much needed and appreciated. And a reminder, before we go here tonight, the cash bar will be set up once again if you want to still renew some old acquaintances. And there also will be free, I said free, cold draft beer available for while it lasts, compliments of the Muskegon Area Hall of Fame. Thanks again, and good night.
That's okay, you can shoot. You can take two of them, so hang on a minute. Gotta smile. Gotta look happy. I am happy. I think one of those will turn out all right. I tell you, so I decided to go back and the rest of the bar.
You know?
I wish it
Oh, I got my tiger shirt.
Yeah. Take your shirt.
You can always remember.
And he calls me after he's coached from the dream. I'm just based with him, and so I figure we're going to play. I call the Muskegon Country Club. They've got the damn district finals or district tournament out there. You know that McNiff?
Oh yeah, Bob McNiff tournament.
That's out there this week.
That's a biggie.
Yeah, and so it's the course is all cut up. So Horse and I belong to this other club, Muskegon, down by between which is.
Did you get my letter?